Hi, it's Tom again, and in this video we're going to be talking about handling events. It's the first video in a series that deals with events and custom exceptions in C#. If you happen to be one of my students, you'll have this starter solution available that has a number of things defined, including a class representing dice, event arguments class, dice rollout at range class. These are all partially defined. We'll be modifying them in subsequent videos. And there's an enumeration in there called role slang names as well. But at any rate, in this video, we're not going to be dealing with any of those other classes. We're just going to be dealing with the program class directly. So in the program class, there's the main method, and I've defined a little bit of a framework for you. So there's a try block, just outputs a little bit of information on the screen. There's some comments there we'll fill in as the tutorial progresses. There's a catch block and a finally block. Okay, and you'll notice too, there's a handling events stub for a method. There's some stuff below as well, but we're not worried about that at the moment. So our first task in this tutorial is going to be to define this handling events method, which is currently a stub. The idea here is to get you familiar with how to sort of handle events for classes that actually have them already defined. So the timer class is an example of a class that's built into the .NET framework, the library, that raises events. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a timer, and we're going to add our own handler to handle the timer's elapsed event. So just to make sure, you'll notice I've got this comment here that says using systems timers up top. So I'm going to scroll up to the top here and make sure, and I do in fact have it, but at any rate, it was worthwhile double checking. I'm going to create a new timer. Okay, so it'll be timer. Oops. There we go. The timer equals new timer, and then what you supply here to the timer constructor is a number that it represents a number of milliseconds. Okay, so 1,000 milliseconds here, which is what I've defined, is equal to 1 second. This is the interval time. So if you picture a timer kind of like it's going to go off, raise an alarm or something like that every 1 second based on how I've defined it here. Okay, we'll wire an event handler in a second, but right now we'll just, start the timer. So the timer dot start. Okay, and then I want to suspend a thread for about 3 seconds. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to bother doing this up top. It's system threading thread, and then the method is called sleep, and how many milliseconds I want to sleep. And I'm saying roughly 3 seconds. I'm going to do a tiny bit more than 3 seconds, 3.01 seconds. Is that how that works? The reason being is if I want to have my full three intervals, so I'm just going a little bit beyond it, so I don't just get 2. So a tiny bit more than 3,000 milliseconds. Okay, and then I'm just going to stop the timer at that point. So what I'm hoping will happen is by sleeping, the timer is going to go off 3 times. Okay. All right. So I can go back up to main and cause this to happen underneath where it says part 1 handling events. I'll call my handling events method. And of course, when I run this, nothing really all that spectacular is going to happen. I'll click start. It's sort of pausing there for about 3 seconds, and then it ends. So the sleep is working, but I don't know if that interval is actually going off because I don't have anything wired to the timer to happen. Okay, let's create, underneath handling events, let's create an event handler for what's supposed to happen when the timer interval goes off. Okay, this will be a static method. It's a void method. It doesn't return anything. I'm going to call it the timer underscore. I'm not really following our style guide exactly, but it's what we normally see for event handlers. That sort of under the name of the object, and then underscore the name of the event, the elapsed event. Now this has to conform to the delegate for the timer's elapsed event. So the first argument, and these are pretty common, is object. I'm going to call it source. That's the timer that actually elapsed. And then the second argument is something called elapsed event arguments, which is an object that contains a little bit of extra additional event information, and it's customized for the elapsed event. I'm just going to call it E. All right. So all we really need to do in this event handler is just show that it actually is happening. So I'm just going to display some information about the event. So I'm going to write whatever the object is to string. Okay, so that should say the timer, I suppose. Elapsed at, and then the signal time. So this is the time that the actual event took place. The elapsed event took place. So we'll try that out. Now, if I go and run it, I'm not going to have anything different than I had before. It's going to sleep for about 3 seconds and come back. The reason being is, although I've defined this event handler, I haven't actually wired it to the event handler. So I'll go back up to handling events, and let's add the wiring. So the object is the timer. Okay, it has an elapsed event. Okay, plus equals, because I might have more than one event handler for this event. Okay, plus equals, and then it's going to be a new elapsed event handler. Now that's the name of a delegate. So the delegate elapsed event handler is a delegate that's going to represent our actual event handler. Okay. And then in brackets, the name of the actual event handler we just created. So it's called the timer elapsed. All right. So by doing that wiring, what's going to happen is a timer is going to understand to call this method when the actual timer has elapsed, when that event is raised. So let's try that out. Okay, so now we're actually getting somewhere. We can see in that 3 seconds, the timer elapsed 3 times. Okay, roughly 1 second, well, not roughly, exactly 1 second apart. All right, so that wraps up this video. Again, what we did here is we took a class that already had an event, and we just wired our own event handler to it. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to define our own class, specifically it's the dice class, and we're going to actually add our own events. All right, thank you very much.